Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to today's edition of The Fishing Teacher, and appreciate you guys swinging by the channel to spend some of your day with me. Always happy to have you guys around here, and man, never take that for granted that you guys click on the video to check it out, so really appreciate that. Guys, today at the time of filming this video, we're almost into the first part of December, and I want to talk a little bit about December bass fishing today, and probably one of my favorite lures to fish in the month of December that probably you've never heard of, or a lot of people don't ever fish and have never tried it before. But this is going to be a really good bait to add to your arsenal in December and on into January also. So we're going to get into that in today's episode here. Also, guys, talking about winter bass fishing, I'd just like to invite you to please swing by and check out my Fish of the Moment lake map breakdowns. We got our winter maps up that I've been building for the site. If you guys want to get some good winter fishing places on your favorite lake or a lake you've never been to before, these maps that I built for Fish of the Moment are the deal, that you guys definitely want to check out. I'll have the link in the description for that. And also, guys, anybody interested in booking an on-the-water lesson with me to learn about winter fishing, just go to my Facebook page, Randy Blaukat Professional Angler. You can shoot me a private message, and we'll go out on Table Rock or Stocking Lake and spend the day going over whatever technique you'd like to learn about. Okay, guys, the bait we're talking about here today, this is the Megabass Dyna Response Blade Bait. Look at the attention to detail on this thing, man. This is like one of the most natural looking shad baits I have ever seen in my life. Just looks exactly like a little bitty thread pin shad, the perfect size that they feed on in the wintertime. And I'll put this in my Tackle Warehouse link, guys, if you'd like to order one of these Dyna Responses through my link I put in the description. Good way to help the channel, and it's a good way to get a discount because right now they got that Black Friday sale going on, so it's a good time to order right now. But it's called the Dyna Response. That's the one you want right there. Okay, now this is what's called a blade bait. Now blade baits have been around forever, and they're basically just a piece of metal, and they work a little bit like a lipless crankbait. They have a real hard vibration wobble. I can't really do it to hold you up here, but you know how a rattle trap comes through the water? A blade bait, when you reel it fast through the water, it sort of comes through the water the same way like a rattle trap, but you don't fish it horizontally. You fish this bait vertical off the bottom. And when you jerk it off the bottom, when you rip it up off the bottom, it vibrates up like that and then falls down like a dead shad. Then vibrates up like a wounded shad, falls back down like a dead shad. So it acts exactly like a wounded shad that have, they're dying a lot of times in the wintertime. There's always a big wintertime shad kill in most lakes across the country. And this Dyna Response resembles that perfectly. A little dying shad struggling down there, and the bass will come out and hammer the thing. Another thing about this thing that's cool is if you've ever noticed a lot of the shad in the wintertime, this is about the size they are after they spawned in the summertime. So it's about 1.25 inches or something like that, just a little over an inch. And God, they just absolutely love this thing, especially if you got some spotted bass in the lake you fish. Okay, now let's talk a little bit about how to fish it and the type of areas that you want to fish it in. Now, like I said, this is a vertical bait, although you don't have to be completely vertical on it. In fact, I'm going to get a rod here and I'm going to sort of show you how I like to go about fishing the thing. I fish it both vertical and sort of like at a 45-degree angle, but I don't cast it and reel it through the water column. I'm jerking it off the bottom or jerking it for suspended fish, depending upon how the fish are set up. How exactly you want to work this thing first. Okay, now what I do, the technique that I use in it is like this. I will get into the area that I'm fishing. We'll talk a little bit in a second, and I'll pitch the Dyna Response maybe 20 foot out in front of the boat. And the boat is slowly moving forward, so I pitch it out there, and I strip the line down to the depth that I want the bait to go down. And then once I do that, I hold the rod like this. I hold my right hand on the trigger there, and I've got my left hand above the reel, and I'm popping it up like that. I'll just jerk it up like that, almost like a jigging spoon. You don't want to do it real fast or real high. You want to try to jerk it up maybe a foot or two off the bottom, just about like that, and follow the line down. It's like you don't want to drop it on a slack line, or the hooks will get fouled on the bait if you get too much slack on there. But it's going to be, when you do that, it's going to be going up like this and down, this and down. And the reason that I pitch it out in front of the boat like that is as my boat's moving forward and I'm stripping line out, by the time that I get the bait to the bottom, a lot of times the bait is pretty much vertical under the boat. So I'm just popping it up vertical like that, right underneath the boat. Sometimes, I'll drop it I'll just free spool it straight down, let it go straight down and pop it up vertical off the bottom if I know specifically where the fish are at. Okay, so here's what I'm looking for on this. This is the area that you want to fish these baits are critical, because since you are fishing vertical over the fish, you've got to be right on the fish. You're not looking for fish with this thing a lot of times. You've got to be confident that there's fish in the area. So this is what I do before I fish, this dyna response anywhere that I'm fishing, and I'll talk about the areas in a second. I always want to graph it with my 2D sonar, and I'm looking for specifically bait fish. I don't have to see fish on it. In fact, that's not a big deal to me. I want to see balls of shad. Now, the depth that the shad is really critical, because that's going to tell me whether I need to fish that bait off the bottom or up higher in the water column. And a lot of times they can be either or. Sometimes these shad are close to the bottom, sometimes they're suspended up. But let's say, for example, I graph around an area and I notice some, the water's 45 or 50 feet deep, and I notice some shad 15 or 20 foot down. That's when I'm going to be counting the dyna response for suspended fish. I'll pitch it out there like that, and I'll let it fall down until I think it's 15 or 20 foot deep, and then I'll just pop it up like that off the bottom. But if I'm noticing a lot of fish or shad close to the bottom, say for example the water's 30 foot deep and I'm noticing shad 20, 25 feet deep, a lot of times I'll let it go all the way to the bottom. I'll work the bottom a little bit, then I may crank it up 4 or 5 cranks and try to get it through that suspended school of shad. So that's a really key thing. I don't hardly ever just go fishing without looking for shad first on it. Okay, there's 2 primary type of areas that this is going to work good in. Well, actually maybe 3. The first one is, our typical main lake and secondary points. You can't go wrong with that. One of my favorite ways to do it is I graph around those points and I try to notice where most of the activity is, and then I'll concentrate in that depth zone, with the dyna response. And then the other 2 areas are if you have a lake that has submergent timber. This is when this bait really, really shines, because like here at Table Rock Lake where I fish, we have a lot of timber that is growing out of 60 or 80 foot of water that comes 20 to 30 foot underneath the water. So I'll jig and vertical jig that dyna response in the tops of those trees. A lot of times those fish will suspend in the tops of those trees in the wintertime. So if you have a lake that's got submergent timber, that's one thing you definitely want to try. And then finally, the typical, what I call ditch fishing. So if you go back into like a major creek arm and you've got some coves off that creek, go back in some of those coves and go back halfway back into those coves until you get into about 30, 35 foot of water, and just start pitching the dyna response right in the middle of that cove, working your way back toward the cove till it gets about 20 foot deep or so. A lot of times those fish will set up in the wintertime in the middle of those little ditches and guts, and that vertical jig in the dyna response is a really good way to catch them with it. But anyway, guys, it's a bait that works really good in December and January. A lot of people don't fish it. It's pretty much the same presentation as a spoon. So if you've ever caught many fish on a spoon, just some type of a jigging spoon, this is just another bait to back that up with it. But the dyna response will work a little bit better than a spoon for heavily pressured fish because it just looks more real in the water. So anyway, guys, just give it a try. It's not intimidating. If you've never caught fish on a blade bait or a spoon, don't get intimidated. All you have to do is get out on a point, pitch that thing to the bottom, and just rip it off the bottom. Most of the time, they're going to hit it 2 different ways. When you pop the bait off the bottom like that, a lot of times as you get to the upper part of pop, so you pop it like that, and they grab it right at the top of the pop, and so you're setting the hook. But other times you're popping it like that and your line's falling and you'll just see your line twitch. And then sometimes as soon as you pop it, it's like, you let it go down, and as soon as you jerk it off the bottom, you got them. It's just like they'll hit them in 3 different ways, just depending upon, each individual fish is different. So anyway, guys, hope it helps you catch some. The Megabass dyna response, link in the description, and hope it helps you guys catch some good ones. See ya.